There we go.
Beautiful. All right. All right. For anybody who's been following along at home, welcome back to the Talking Average Fitness podcast. My name is Sam Burns. I'm joined, as always, by the only person who owns more Rogue labeled gear than I do, Mr. Kevin McCarthy. Kevin, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. Um, Sitting here with the only man that, I mean, I don't know. You probably own more Lululemon than I do. I'm just making a guess.
That's actually probably true.
That's probably accurate. I'm
I
just
have
throwing a shot in the dark. I'm like,
you want to know this is an honest to God truth.
yeah,
I have it scheduled today in my calendar to go to Lululemon.
there we go.
Like
Listen, you got to block time out for that. It's a big to do.
it's a commitment.
Um, it is. It's
You
a
got to go to a
commitment.
mall, like
You
talk to
better bring
people,
you better bring your wallet, because one pair of pants is $200.
bro.
They're the best pants though. The best thing was
They're so good.
when Sammy got me, like I'd heard people talk about the ABC pant, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's the best." You know, Lachlan was on it for years. We had old Lulu Lock at
Yeah,
the gym, and oh, it's the best, the best. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure they're the best, whatever. And then last year, Sammy got me a pair. I forget if it was like for my birthday or Christmas, something like that. She got me a pair.
yeah,
She's like, here's, and they're like nice pants, and I put them on, and I
yeah.
was like, oh, it's like this is the best thing in the entire world. I was like, I can wear them to a function, but
Yeah.
I can also function. Like I can
Yes.
squat fully in them, perfectly comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
They're phenomenal. I got a pair of Lulu shorts on right now to go
There you
with
go.
my Rogue t-shirt.
These
Um,
I got LSKD on right now, which I really like. I really
okay.
like the LSKD stuff.
Yeah.
Um, Fun story. So, and this is so I was at Reebok once with Denise, and
Yep.
she had just invited me because at this time I'm rabid for kind of the opportunity to work with her and just kind of watch her. And so I would drive an hour into Boston just to
Yep.
watch her class.
Yep.
And we sat down, and we debriefed, and we, you know, caught up a little bit after, and I can't remember what was happening. I was like, "Hey, I'm going to go to use the bathroom." She's like, "All right, when you're done, come meet me upstairs because I got to fold a bunch of towels." I'm like, "All right, cool."
Hmm.
So I do my business, go upstairs, we're chit chatting. We're at the end. I'm getting ready to leave. She's like, "Are those pants Lulu?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "How are they really nice?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Cool. Don't ever wear those here again." And it was not at all in a "how dare you" kind of way. It was
Yeah.
like I'm standing in the Reebok
Yeah.
corporate headquarters,
Yeah. Wearing Lululemon pants.
wearing a direct competitor's product, and it
Yeah.
was like, oh, of course, that's
Duh.
not what you do, you know?
I forget who it was that rocked up to Reebok. It was like someone that, got invited to work out with the crew, right?
Mm,
And this was, oh, big no no. It's like, of course, they didn't think of it. There's like, I'm just going to go work out.
sure.
Homie rocks up in a pair of Nike Metcons, just
Yep.
rocks up to the Reebok gym. And I'm pretty sure it was Austin there. He was just like, get out.
Probably.
Like,
Probably.
get out of my fucking gym. Never show your
Yeah.
face back here ever again.
Yeah.
Oh, fun
So
times.
good times. Yay, Lulu.
Always good times.
If Lulu wants to make me an ambassador, I won't say no.
Exactly.
So I have this itch in my brain, and I wanna hash it out
Hmm.
on air. So in the CrossFit level one, and in the I want to say it's the What is CrossFit lecture at the level one seminar, there is a triangle, right? It's a pyramid.
Mm.
My OG uh, when Reebok was the sole product provider for CrossFit coaches, you know what I'm talking about because you went to your level one and you got the shirt. And the
Yep, it's on the
shirt,
back of your shirt.
exactly, it's you've got the triangle on the back of the shirt, and you can't get that anymore. So if you have it, like, good on you. And
Hold
if you
on to it.
don't, yeah,
Cherish it forever. Frame it.
exactly. Because ain't noble doing that.
Nope.
Nope. And the never mind. There's a whole lot of things. We're going down that rabbit hole. We don't need to talk about that. Um, so the pyramid we were talking about, for those of people who don't aren't initiated, is it's a diagram, right? It's called the theoretical hierarchy for the development of an athlete. And it's a way of prioritizing I guess
Aspects of fitness.
yeah, like
I think
let's
that's a good way to describe it. It's like
I
it's a
can't
way
come
of
up with a better one.
prioritizing. Yeah, it's a way of
Yeah.
prioritizing your aspects of fitness from like a greatest priority to least greatest priority.
Well,
As you
well,
go from,
well,
I stand by that, from greatest
yeah, no,
priority
no,
to
I think
least
that's,
greatest.
I think, yeah, and like you could maybe priority is maybe not the right word, but foundational, right? Like,
Yeah, right.
and so
Most foundational to least foundational.
yes, yes,
There we go.
um,
Well, I'll go with that.
and so the pyramid is laid out in 5 tiers, right?
Hmm.
The bottom tier, and we're not here to debate the content of the pyramid. Let me say that outright, okay? Like I'm good with the content. So
Yeah.
the bottom tier is nutrition, right? And
Hmm.
so the um, contention is if you do nothing else and
Hmm.
you eat pretty good, you can move the needle on your fitness,
Yep.
defined as extraordinary wellness, right?
Hmm.
Um, you can do that. Like that's the thing you can do. Above that is metabolic conditioning or metcon,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Now we talk about metabolic conditioning. The way it expresses itself, of course, is um, monostructural cyclical movements, things like biking, running, rowing, jump rope, things like that. It's cardio work,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
But it has a deeper meaning, and we'll get to that, I'm sure. Above that, ba, 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 is gymnastics. Okay.
Hmm.
Above that is very often missed weightlifting and throwing. So it
Hmm.
says outright weightlifting and throwing. You should be able to like huck a softball or whatever, right? Hashtag Spencer Hendel. Um,
Oh my God, that fucking event at the games, it was hysterical. Did you
he
watch like Jason
yeeted that
Klepa and
thing.
Chris? No, I'm talking like Jason Klepa and Chris Spieler who didn't know how to throw a ball. They wind up, right? You get like a running start, like a
Oh, I
javelin
know.
running start. Like they're running, they wind up, they give it everything they've got, and that ball went about 7 feet. It was
Oh, so good.
amazing.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Um, Continue. Weightlifting and throwing.
Weightlifting and throwing. And then finally at the
Hmm.
top of the pyramid, the final tier is sport. And the
Hmm.
way I like to describe this to people is um, the bottom 4 tiers are CrossFit.
Yes.
And remember the pyramid is called the theoretical hierarchy for the development of an athlete, right?
Yep.
So
Hmm.
at the top of the pyramid is anything that is sports specific. So um, if I was going to coach Kevin, which probably not going to happen, Kevin's pretty fit, right? But if I was going to coach Kevin in soccer, let's say,
Mm.
Kevin hires me as a strength and conditioning coach. I want to put Kevin on a program that utilizes functional movements in a deliberately varied manner, optimizing for intensity. CrossFit, right?
Yep.
He doesn't
Yep.
have to know that. What I'm not going to do with Kevin is like ball handling drills or fucking
Yep.
how to hit something with a weird side of your foot. I don't know that shit. So I'm like, scope of practice, I'm not going to
Yep.
talk about that stuff. I'm going to leave
Yep.
that to a specialist. But I can train him in a manner that's going to optimally prepare him to be a better athlete. So we've got this hierarchy, right? And the idea is um, because each of these tiers builds on the other one, right?
Hmm.
You should go in an order, right?
Yep. Yep.
We hear this talked about a lot. And so I have 2 points, and I'd love to kind of bandy this about. The first is that, um, and Tony Ronke, who ran gymnastics seminars for years, he'd like, he'd have all 5 tiers written on a whiteboard. He'd go, "What's the first one?" And all the coaches go, "Nutrition." He says, "Lies." Like
Yeah.
this lies is what goes here because nobody does that. And then after lies
Yeah.
comes a million burpees, right?
Yep.
And we make you do a million burpees, and then we go to gymnastics. Except nope, fuck that. And we hop all the way to weightlifting, and
Yep.
we pull out our phones and we film every single snatch that we do for 5 years.
Yep.
Um, and like at this point, everyone's chuckling because that's what we do, right?
Yep.
Everyone's like,
Yep.
oh, why would this thing that is way more difficult than weightlifting be more important than weightlifting? And I know that you and I have, even though we come at this from different perspectives, I believe we share a common base here.
Oh
And
yeah.
and so like I'd love for you to explain to the peoples like gymnastics, to quote Tony, gymnastics is rude.
Yep.
Gymnastics gives no fucks. So why would they have done it like that?
So the reason, and this kind of comes back to like a previous podcast episode when you and I are arguing back and forth weightlifting or gymnastics.
Mm.
You made the point that gymnasts are pound for pound the strongest athletes in the world, which I would agree, especially when it comes to upper body pressing stuff.
Well, and now
And
I'm going to argue against that in a second here, but go ahead.
okay, well, you said it, so you can argue against yourself, and that should
I'm
be pretty
gonna.
interesting.
I'm gonna.
Okay. See, my weightlifting argument was that good that I changed his mind, ladies and gents. It was
He
that good.
split my psyche. That's how good it was.
um, no, so it's and then you argue that they have such phenomenal motor control,
Yep.
which again, true. So, in terms of the theoretical hierarchy for the development of an athlete, as you're going up, nutrition
Mhm.
is the foundation for everything. If you eat like crap, it doesn't really matter what you're going to do. You're not going to maximize your potential in
Absolutely.
that. I would like to think that's a known thing in the fitness space, but it's probably not, which is why we have here's your detox diet and here's your try this over here. And listen, I can start rant and rant with detox diets. Your liver and kidney have been detoxing every inch of your body for however long you've fucking been alive. So you don't
Yeah.
need a detox diet. You just need to not eat burgers and pizza for a day, and you'll feel
Yeah.
better. Um,
Hilarious.
End rant. Um, so if you don't have your nutrition dialed in, everything else above that is going to suffer.
Yeah.
Then we have metabolic conditioning. You need to be conditioned across different time domains and the whole thing for
Yeah.
everything else builds on top of that. If you don't have a lick of conditioning,
Yeah.
you're going to do your one snatch with an empty bar and you're going to be fucking winded. It's going to feel like you ran a 5K. And so you need some level of conditioning to kind of progress on from that. And then
Yes.
the reason gymnastics is next, and I agree with this in terms of developing people through this hierarchy,
Yeah.
as CrossFitters and the way CrossFit we do in the methodology, is you need to learn to control your own body in space and
Mhm.
develop the motor control and awareness to do so
Yes.
before you attempt trying to move external loads or objects. So developing some amount of motor control to the point where
Mhm.
you can, in a coordinated fashion, core to extremity movement,
Sure.
move yourself through a range of motion
Yes.
before you try and add an external object or load to said movement.
Right. But now I'm going to use your own words against you.
Okay, please do.
This is the best podcast we've ever done.
Okay.
So, Sam, I agree that Sam,
Yeah.
I agree that gymnasts are pound for pound the strongest humans around, but it takes so long for them to get like that, And now it's like I come in, I'm 50. I don't have 20 years to reach my genetic potential. My genetic potential is 15 years behind me, right?
Right.
Whereas you can coach me into a position with a PVC pipe and get me doing the thing for a deadlift or a press or a front squat, maybe
Yep.
even a clean or a power snatch or something like that. You can coach me into that position with a PVC pipe so much easier than you can get me to exhibit virtuosity, let alone mastery of a movement pattern at my full body weight. Right?
I can probably teach you a deadlift with a PVC pipe faster than I can explain the difference between a pike and a hollow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Especially
you've
if you count the person's ability to comprehend what you are talking about, and that's not a slight in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying,
but
like deadlift is a much simpler concept.
if you put like someone doing a pike and someone doing a hollow hold, like the two pictures next
Yeah.
to each other, and you asked just one of your Joe Schmo members, it'd be like that meme from The Office. They're the same picture.
These
Like,
pictures are the same.
yeah, they're the
Snatch
same
and
picture.
squat snatch.
Yeah, that's the same. That's the same picture. Oh man. I mean,
Yeah.
I told you this beforehand that, like, just start a weightlifting cycle. It'll fix everything. I've yet to come across a problem in life that hasn't been fixed by doing more snatches. So
Yeah.
there it is. There it is, folks. That's all you
I
got to
said
do.
it.
Yeah,
So I agree. Of course I agree, right?
yeah,
Um the problem is gymnastics is hard, right?
super hard. Yep,
It's super hard, right?
super hard.
It's also so like gymnastics is hard, weightlifting is hard, right?
Yes.
Despite the fact that the snatch and
Mm-hmm.
the clean and jerk
Mm-hmm.
are the most technical movements we do with an external load.
Yep.
Like the technicality that is required, rather, the understanding of the technicality that is required to accomplish that movement successfully is probably way greater than many people are aware of.
Yep.
Despite that fact, 9 out of 10 coaches are way more comfortable handing you a PVC pipe and calling reps through a power snatch progression or whatever
Mm-hmm.
than they are running people through a kipping pull-up drill in a
Yep.
class. You know,
Then we've gone over this. The reason why is because I can stop things.
Yeah.
I can fully control the pace at which Sam does his PVC snatch, where I'm pausing him, where I'm holding him, the whole thing. Whereas
because we're dealing with something that weighs a half a pound.
Exactly.
Yes.
So like I can control the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so that makes I'm much more comfortable because I'm controlling everything. You start at mid shin, you can just hang out there. We're gonna pull to the knee, you can just hang out there, and I can fix all my stuff. But to be able to see and actually make corrections on a kipping pull up, you got to be able to see real fast. It's got to happen quick. Like something happens, and you know what the problem is, so that when they come down from their set of 5, whatever kind of the warm up thing is, but I can't like pause and like show people like, hey, I'm gonna pause halfway through a kipping pull up, and this is where I want your hip to be. It's like the only person I've seen do that is Colin, and it enraged me. He was like trying to get something going with like people's shapes on the bar.
Yeah.
And this motherfucker literally stopped in the middle of a kipping pull-up and held the position, and then had the audacity to talk to the class about, see where my hips are?
Yeah.
This is where at this point here, this is where you're gonna pop your hips. And he popped his hips open and then held there. And he's like, then we should look like this. And I was like, you stop it. Get out of the gym. Fuck you.
Fuck you, David Blaine. Get out of here.
I was so angry.
Irrationally incensed.
Oh my gosh. I was taking class. I just left. I just grabbed my bag and walked out of the but it's like, but you can't do that with your people. You can't be like, all right, everyone, pull back into your hollow position on the bar, bam, and then tell people hold, and then like look around and see if people's hollow is in the right spot. You can't do that. Even if you are calling where you can pause, Joe and Jane in your class cannot do that. That's where kind of the comfort level comes in is, I can control everything you're doing with a PVC pipe or even an empty barbell in some cases. I can't control and pause everything that you're doing with gymnastics. So it's harder to see and way harder to correct. So that's where the things come in. But I remember a thing, I think it was Pat Sherwood on a podcast or an Instagram reel or some sort of something, said, and you'll like this, where he was like kind of having that snatch and gymnastics comparison. He was like, if you can do a barbell snatch, even if that's just with an empty barbell, if you can perform the movement of pulling that bar from the floor or a mid-shin position, extend your hips and catch with that bar overhead, you can do the most complex movement in weightlifting. And we're going to use weightlifting as like Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting, just any barbell or loaded movement you can do. You can do the most complex thing on the menu. Shift that lens to gymnastics. They're like, he was like, how many of you can do the most complex thing you can do in gymnastics?
Yeah.
No, nobody, then there's the imbalance. And
Yeah.
again, there's, you know, we've talked about with barbells, you do a snatch, the movement doesn't change, but you add the load, and
Yeah.
that's how you make it harder. Whereas with gymnastics, you add complexity. There's so many different variations of the
Yes.
different skills and movements in gymnastics as a sport, where
Mm-hmm.
I understand the comparison of we can do the most complex thing over here, but we can't do it over here. Why not? It's like, well, again, you can do the thing over here with an empty bar is like the
Yeah.
lowest level thing. Whereas, like, I don't know, pick a level one gymnastics movement, and that's
Hollow.
more approachable. Exactly.
Yeah.
Where if you taught people properly how to do that, where like you're going around like a hawk and like fixing people's hollow position,
Mm-hmm.
they'd probably learn it in a similar period of time as like learning a fluid making a barbell snatch one movement. Like if you equate
Absolutely.
those, cool. But it's like I like the comparison, but my argument against it is like, okay, a snatch with an empty bar is not the same level of difficulty as an iron cross. You can't equate the two. Or I don't know what the most complex gymnastic skill ever would be, but you can't equate those. And I feel like you got some gears turning, but I'm the same thing is you
Mm-hmm.
can't
You keep
be
going.
like you can't be like you can snatch an empty bar, but you can't do an I'm just gonna keep using an iron cross. You can't do an iron cross. Why is that? It's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, it took that person decades to progress through gymnastics to get to the point doing iron cross.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I can't do iron cross. I also can't snatch 300 pounds.
Right.
It's like, but in my mind, that's kind of the equation, right? Is like,
Right.
because you've added on enough load to make the snatch an equivalent level of challenging as an iron cross. And it's probably, going to take, if someone's going to snatch 300 pounds, it probably took them a decade of dedicated weightlifting training to get
Yeah.
there. So
Absolutely.
that's how, in my mind, I would equate it.
Okay.
But I understood the point of we can snatch, but we can't iron cross.
Yeah.
There's the imbalance. I'm like, I agree there has been in the past, now that Boz is at the helm, I think we're seeing a bit of a shift there, but there has been a more of a bias towards barbell than more complex gymnastics.
Yep.
And I do agree that that needs to be equated and that more people rush to the barbell in the development of a CrossFit athlete versus rush to gymnastic stuff.
Yeah.
But I also think when it comes down to that theoretical hierarchy and you put gymnastics first, and we're like, we need to learn, body control to move your body through a range of motion.
Uh-huh.
Gymnastics doesn't necessarily mean like muscle ups. Gymnastics would count as air squats,
Yes.
push ups,
Yes.
like, pull ups, stuff like that. And I do think that you should learn those. Like you have to master an air squat or have a pretty damn good air squat before we're like, all right, and we're going to snatch now.
Yeah.
Right? Like you have to have a strong foundation of the air squat before you think about putting the PVC pipe over your head. And you have to have a strong foundation of an overhead squat before we're like, all right, rip that bitch off the floor and catch it in the bottom
Right.
position of that overhead squat. So
Right.
there is the progression of things. You can learn and kind of touch on multiple things at once. I'll say this, I don't think Sam would disagree, but if we're going like, CrossFit from a class perspective, it's
Mm-hmm.
not like, all right, when you're going through classes, you can only teach people gymnastic stuff until they've mastered it, and then you add a barbell. Like things can be learned concurrently. Let's open your
Yes.
mind a little bit. We're not saying
Yes.
like, okay, you have to get everyone's nutrition dialed in before you ever do a workout.
Right.
That's the way to do it. And then you
Right.
can only run a 5K day until they've got a sub 25K, and then you start doing push-ups. That's not
No.
the deal we're thinking of here. But in terms of, I guess when I said earlier, it was kind of like a thing of priority. That's not necessarily the right way to go about it, but it's each layer is foundational. So
Yeah.
each layer on top just builds on the ones below. So
Absolutely.
you can get to barbell stuff and be doing it. I mean, how many of our members in the gym are doing snatches, but their nutrition is imperfect and off the mark? Probably almost all of them, if we're
More
being
than want to
honest.
admit it.
Yeah, probably almost all of them, if we're being honest. But it's just that their weightlifting, their gymnastics, their
Yeah.
sport, their conditioning is going to be less. I was going to say less good, but that's not English. It's going to be less optimal than if the layers underneath it were better. So
Sure.
if you strengthened your nutrition, then everything else would then become better.
Yeah. So there's a lot in there. I agree.
There's a lot in that.
There's a lot in that.
I just said a lot of stuff. Play it back
In
real slow a few
in
times.
terms of equating movements,
Hmm.
I would say from a difficulty level, like
Hmm.
strength requirements, a body weight snatch,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
And a what I would call a true bar muscle up. So
Oh,
a true,
are you like saying like strict?
maybe not even strict bar muscle up, because there's a lot of momentum that happens in a body weight snatch, right? Like
Yes.
you are creating momentum in a direction, and then there's a rapid and forceful change in direction as you pull yourself underneath the barbell. Like the power and strength that you are exhibiting is not quote unquote strict. It's very, very explosive in a snatch, right?
Right. Yep.
Whereas a very well executed bar muscle up that is not, for example, a glide kip, right? So a glide
Okay.
kip, for people who don't know, is like from way behind the bar. I jump up to the bar and like I'm jumping this way. My body
Yep.
swings through and like almost till my feet are like parallel to the other bar.
Yep.
And then
You
I snap
essentially.
like
Yeah.
toe to bar. And
Yeah.
then as I start to drop back, I pop my hips open and then fly up on top of the bar. That's a glide kip.
It's basically you do a toes to bar, and then you just don't move your toes and get the rest of your bar on top of the
Pretty
bar.
much. Pretty much.
The
It's
rest of
the
your body
world's
on top of the
craziest toe
bar.
to bar.
It's
Um,
yeah. It's wild. Glide kips are hard.
Whereas a very well executed bar muscle up has
Yeah.
you jump into hollow,
Yeah.
arch, and it's not an aggressive hip pop or anything. It's just a very fucking aggressive press down.
Yep.
And if you get a person who understands the movement, has an appropriately developed upper body, they can, from that arch position, snap to a hollow and then
Mhm.
press down, and then all of a sudden they're on top of the bar. I would
Yep.
equate those two movements.
Okay.
Um,
I'm gonna have to do a bar muscle up and I'll film it and see if what I do counts as a,
yeah,
virtuous bar muscle up, because I think I
let's
have I think I have pretty good bar muscle ups. If I do say so myself, like pat myself on the back a little bit.
sure.
I do think I have some pretty silky bar muscle ups, but I would love to see your take on, like, are they virtuous? And I know that, like, if you're doing like 30 bar muscles per time, my 30th one is no longer virtuous. I'm just like getting myself up there, but
Um,
pretty much.
which is another thing that we can talk about another time, which is breakdown
Yeah.
positions.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Yep.
so I'd love to see that video. Please send it.
I will. I will do a video when I train today. I'll do that, and
So
we'll see what
one of
we
the
got.
things that, and this isn't like like a secret of any kind, and I'm not giving anything away. One of the things that CrossFit Gymnastics talks about is in the theoretical hierarchy for the development of an athlete, right?
Hmm.
Gymnastics should come before metabolic conditioning. Let me paint a picture, right?
All right, paint a picture. I'm the gears are turning. I'm thinking,
I
but
know, I
paint me a
know.
picture.
I watched that face and I was like, he's
Uh,
thinking. He's like
yeah.
the Kevin look.
We both do
Gotta
the
take
same
that
thing. You can
in.
whenever this happens multiple times as I like listen back podcasts, you can tell when one of us is thinking, because one of us will say something and the
Yeah.
other one just goes. It's just like the long inhale through your
Yep.
nose. I'm like, ooh. At that point, we said something that the other one was like. Like you have a knee-jerk reaction, but you keep it together, and you're like,
Yep.
all right, let me let the gears turn. Don't let the inner
Yep.
weightlifter be like, just do more snatches.
Let's let this
Yeah.
simmer. So here's
Okay, paint me a
imagine.
picture.
Um, by the way, I have terrible fear of motorcycles and anything that does not like enclose me in a steel bubble of safety. So like you'd never get me on a motorcycle.
Right.
Let's say I was in a motorcycle and then I was in a
Yep.
motorcycle accident
Right.
and I had never done CrossFit before, and so I'm in a cast and
Mm.
I rock up to my first CrossFit class and
Yep.
I go, "Hey coach, I'm ready to go." And you're like, "What?" I'm like, "Yep, I want to start CrossFit." Right. You are not going to be able to get me on a rower, on a bike. You're not going to be able to get me jogging or on a true form. You're not going to be able to get me to do double unders. Burpees or jumping jacks are not happening. The very first thing that you need to do or can do is begin to restore body weight control, range of motion about a given joint, right? And
Hmm.
and that's an extreme case, obviously, that is
Right. Yeah.
constructed to bolster my argument.
That's the painting the picture.
That is the painting of the picture.
Yep.
But if I have an athlete who is a severely deconditioned athlete,
Mm.
and we define severely deconditioned athletes as, if you have a sedentary job, a sedentary lifestyle, you are not up and about and active as a byproduct of the way you live your life normally, and you do not regularly or even semi-regularly participate in any kind of strength training or exercise protocol or regimen, you qualify as a deconditioned athlete. I qualified
Mm.
as a deconditioned athlete when I came into CrossFit. One of the things that we talk about in the level one, but is very often skipped in the application of on-ramp programs or anything like that, is restoring a baseline level of range of motion to these human beings, right? And if you've ever had my coaches who have run on-ramp programs or anything like that, you know what I'm talking about. You get a person who comes in and you're like, all right, it's day one. As a part of day one, we're going to do burpees in the workout. Not a lot of burpees. We're going to do some burpees, right? Here's what a CrossFit burpee looks like. I flop down to the deck. I press back up. I hop back to my hands. And that person looks at you like you just did a backflip, right?
Yep.
And I had to learn. I'm like, oh, wait, I have to change how I approach this. And
Yep.
I would teach what I called the couch burpee, right?
Hmm.
And so the couch burpee is, everybody knows this situation. You got your remote for your TV. Your TV is where your couch is. You
Hmm.
drop the remote, it explodes. The batteries, without fail, skitter under the couch, right?
Yep.
And so now you've got to get down onto the ground because your couch is this far from the ground, and you've got to put your face to the ground and
Yeah.
see where the batteries are, right? And nobody does a burpee, but some people do burpees. Nobody
Yeah.
normally does a burpee. What you will do is you'll go one knee, another knee, lay flat, look sideways. And I would
Yep.
call that the couch burpee, right?
Yeah.
And like that's an example of like getting people to think about functional fitness, but also like restoring range of motion.
Yep.
And so that through that framework, right? If I've got a person for whom their life is largely spent not moving, right? Is my priority in that hierarchy, does it serve them to think about getting their body through a functional range of motion and restoring the strength capacity to do so, right, safely? Or can that happen concurrently with something like getting on a rower or a bike, right? Some kind of, um, for lack of a better term, assistance device, right? Because I'm not
Hmm.
going to have that person run a 5K, right? Um, and so you could think almost like a rower or a bike as like a PVC pipe for cardio, right? It's like
Yep.
your
Hmm.
partial body weight thing.
Yep.
Um, is there merit to pulling back from the weightlifting, restoring, like focusing on restoring that functional range of motion and strength through that range of motion, concurrently or maybe even before we worry about getting people's heart rates up and having them, do a 2K or whatever it ends up being? Thoughts?
Mm.
Because we've
I
highlighted
mean,
that
yeah.
like gymnastics is body weight movement, right?
Yep. Body weight movement. Yep.
And if controlling
Um,
your body through space is a thing, are you not doing that when you run, bike, jump rope, row, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
yes. Um, I think there's a lot in that. When you're saying like, taking a deconditioned athlete and getting them back into it, and you want to kind of restore and or learn full range of motion and have them move to that full range of motion. I would argue that that deconditioned athlete, as you're having them go through some air squats, like that's getting some sort of metabolic conditioning stimulus from them as well. Like you're
Almost
doing,
certainly.
you do your on ramp workout, 3 rounds, 10 air squats, 5 burpees. Like that's going to be devastating
Yeah.
in terms of the metabolic effect on that deconditioned athlete. So I think that I liked your kind of compromise where you're like kind of doing both at the same time. If we're
Mhm.
on ramping someone, they are very deconditioned. First priorities is, can we get them moving their body weight through a full range of motion of various movement patterns.
Yep.
Can we're teaching them how to hinge, how to squat, push up, proper like midline stability stuff.
Mhm.
But then also like getting them onto a rower or bike so we can start to build that foundation of conditioning. Um, because sometimes like, the more conditioned you are,
Yeah.
the more you can handle movement. And then those movements can be your body weight ones that's kind of getting them back into a range of motion and
Absolutely.
moving through that. So I would like that one if you kind of like put gymnastics and metabolic conditioning kind of like on the same tier.
Yeah.
Then I think that makes sense as how to approach like a deconditioned athlete.
Mhm.
I still think when it comes down to, if we're like, if we're not looking deconditioned or like any specific level of athlete, you're just taking some human and chucking them into the system. In terms of biggest,
Get fucked.
just,
Peace.
just hey, you get in there.
It's like the meme with Drago from Rocky. If he dies, he
If he
dies.
dies, he dies. Yeah, that's it. Listen, sink or swim, bitches. Um,
Yo.
uh, but you just take someone of some level of capacity, and you're like, my goal is to make you a fitter, happier, healthier human being. Fitter, happier, healthier version of you.
Mhm.
Like, I still think that when it comes down to longevity, health, if we get nerdy and think like biomarkers and stuff.
Yeah.
I still think having a really strong metabolic conditioning foundation is of more importance than
Yeah.
gymnastics capacity.
Well, and
Um,
go ahead.
just in that realm. So I
Yeah.
think like in terms of the pyramid, I know it makes the pyramid shape, it's all nice and whatever, but I think you have your biggest foundation is nutrition,
Yeah.
and then metabolic conditioning is maybe just a hair bigger of a brick than the gymnastics.
Mm.
And then it tapers back down to weightlifting and sport. Um, Again, not that any of those are, you know, any more or less valuable in overall fitness,
Mhm.
but I still do think that bang for buck, having a really solid foundation of metabolic conditioning is
Yeah.
going to serve most people better in their pursuit of health and fitness than, really trying to bolster their gymnastics capacity.
Yeah. And that is actually borne out in data.
Mhm.
So I didn't come into this with an agenda. That's one of the things that we talk about.
Mhm.
So I was on the gymnastics course in Missouri, and one of the things that we talk about in the programming lecture and in the opening lecture is this notion of, you know, this is how CrossFit presents things to us. Um, how do we make this work in real life while pursuing virtuous gymnastics movement, right?
Mhm.
And taking the example of the person who is in the full body cast, they're not going to be on a rower for a bit. They need to restore like range of
You need to get out of the
motion.
body cast first and
Absolutely.
foremost.
And so like that's a way of being like, cool, do you do a needs assessment? Do you
Right.
like
Mhm.
look at the individual needs of the athlete? And in this particular case, like restoring joint range of motion and body weight control is going to be of greater import than, getting them on a rower for 5K.
Right.
Um,
Yep. I agree.
I want to be conscious of time. I want to kick you out of here in about a minute because you got to go coach a class.
I
Um,
do.
you do. And
Speaking of metabolic conditioning, we got some running intervals today.
yes.
Oh, baby. We got 4 400s with a 2 minute rest into 6 200s with a 1 minute rest.
Oh, I got goosebumps. Oh, look at that! Like
Yeah.
you're not gonna be able to, like it's just
Yeah.
gonna wash out. But
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like that's hard goosebumps going on right now.
Yeah.
Um,
Boom.
well, everything that was in my brain just went out. Um,
Yeah.
I don't think there's any better way that we could end this podcast than by saying go get some.
Go get some.
And if you are at home and you're like, should I go to the gym? Should I not go to the gym? And for some reason you can't go to the gym and you're looking for a workout,
Mm-hmm.
was it 400s with 2 minutes
Four
rest?
400s with a 2 minute rest into 6 200s with a 1 minute rest.
Oh,
So basically, you finish your last 400, you rest your 2 minutes, you go right into your 200s.
FYI, if you don't know why that's so fucking devastating, it's because it's 1-to-1 work to rest.
Yeah,
So
it's disgusting.
go run your lungs out, ladies
Yep,
and gentlemen, and we will come back and we'll talk at you with another topic next week.
yep.
Kevin, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, my
Always.
friend.
You as well.
Yeah, man. See you, everybody.